My brother tried to ruin my engagement party by faking his own engagement, but it backfired spectacularly. Now he's begging for my help to fix his life. My brother Thomas, 31 now, tried to ruin my engagement party, but his plan blew up in his face. I, 28F, still can't believe how childish he acted, and now he's dealing with the fallout. I need to vent because this whole situation has been so draining. To give some background, Thomas and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, we were the only kids of our parents who ran a successful local hardware store. From an early age, it was clear that Thomas was the apple of our parents' eyes. He was outgoing, charismatic, and seemed to excel at everything he tried. Whether it was sports, academics, or social situations, Thomas always came out on top. I, on the other hand, was more introverted and creative. I loved art and writing, spending hours in my room working on stories or sketches. While my parents weren't unkind, they often seemed puzzled by my interests. They'd praise Thomas's football trophies or math awards, but my art contest wins or writing achievements were met with polite smiles and quick subject changes. As we got older, the gap between us only widened. Thomas was the star quarterback of our high school team, dated the head cheerleader, and was voted prom king. I was part of the drama club, had a small group of close friends, and preferred working on the school newspaper to attending pep rallies. When it came time for college, Thomas got a full-ride scholarship to a prestigious university for both academics and football. The whole town celebrated his success. I chose to attend a smaller liberal arts college known for its creative writing program. My parents seemed disappointed, questioning whether I'd be able to make a living with an English degree. After college, Thomas went into finance and quickly climbed the corporate ladder at a big firm in New York City. He made a fortune and lived a lavish lifestyle, which our parents never failed to brag about to anyone who would listen. Meanwhile, I pursued a career in social work, specializing in helping at-risk youth through art therapy programs. While I found my job incredibly fulfilling, it didn't come with the same prestige or financial rewards as Thomas's career. My parents never seemed to understand why I chose this path, and often made comments about how I could have done so much better if I had followed a more traditional career path like Thomas. Despite the tension between us, I always tried to maintain a relationship with Thomas. I'd invite him to my art therapy showcases or fundraising events for the youth center where I worked. However, he rarely showed up, always citing work commitments or last-minute meetings. When he did attend family gatherings, he had a habit of dominating conversations with stories about his work successes or his latest expensive purchases, his new sports car, his penthouse apartment, or his recent vacation to some exotic location. Things came to a head when I met my fiancé, Philip, 30M, 3 years ago. Philip is a high school history teacher who also coaches the debate team. He's kind, supportive, and genuinely interested in my work and passions. From the moment we started dating, I knew he was different from anyone I'd been with before. He made me feel valued and appreciated in a way I had never experienced, especially within my own family. Philip and I met at a local coffee shop. I was working on some sketches for an upcoming art therapy session, and he was grading papers. We struck up a conversation about the book I was reading, and before we knew it, hours had passed. Philip was fascinated by my work in art therapy, asking thoughtful questions and sharing his own experiences of helping students through difficult times. When I introduced Philip to my family, my parents were polite but reserved. Thomas, on the other hand, was openly dismissive. He made snide comments about Philip's job, asking if he had considered a real career or if he was just playing teacher until something better came along. I was furious, but Philip handled it with grace, calmly explaining the importance of education and the fulfillment he found in helping shape young minds. Over the next 3 years, as my relationship with Philip grew stronger, Thomas's behavior towards us became increasingly hostile. At family gatherings, he would make backhanded compliments about our modest apartment or Philip's used car. He'd try to embarrass Philip by asking him complex financial questions or talking about exclusive events that Philip couldn't possibly afford to attend. One particularly painful incident occurred at our parents' 35th wedding anniversary party. Thomas had just returned from a business trip to Tokyo and spent the entire evening regaling everyone with stories of his five-star hotel and meetings with important clients. When Philip tried to join the conversation by sharing an interesting historical fact about Japan he had taught his students, Thomas laughed and said, "That's cute, but let the adults talk about real-world experiences." Despite Thomas's attitude, Philip proposed to me on our third anniversary. It was a simple but beautiful proposal in the community garden where we volunteer together on weekends. He had arranged for some of the kids from my art therapy program to create a mural with the words, "Will you marry me?" hidden within the design. When I finally spotted the message, I turned around to find Philip on one knee, holding a ring. It wasn't an expensive diamond, but a beautiful opal, my favorite stone, set in a handcrafted silver band made by a local artisan we both admired. I was overjoyed and immediately said yes. When we announced our engagement to my family, my parents were happy for us, if a bit subdued. I could tell they were wondering about the financial implications of Philip becoming part of the family. Thomas, however, couldn't even muster up a congratulations. He just nodded and quickly changed the subject to his recent promotion. Philip and I decided to have an engagement party to celebrate with our friends and family. We wanted something low-key but special, so we rented out a local art gallery for the evening. Many of the pieces on display were created by the youth I work with, and we thought it would be a great way to showcase their talent while celebrating our love. We put a lot of effort into planning the perfect night, from the locally sourced catering to the playlist featuring all our favorite songs. The night of the party arrived and everything was going smoothly. Our friends from work, Philip's fellow teachers, and some of the kids from my art program were mingling, enjoying the food and admiring the artwork. Even my parents seemed to be warming up to the idea of our marriage, telling Philip how happy they were to welcome him to the family. About an hour into the party, Thomas arrived with his girlfriend, Melissa, 27F. I was surprised to see him, as he had initially RSVP'd that he couldn't make it due to a work commitment. As soon as they walked in, I could tell something was off. Thomas had a smug look on his face, and Melissa looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting around the room nervously. After making a show of congratulating us, Thomas clinked his glass to get everyone's attention. My stomach tightened as he started to speak, his voice carrying across the room. "Thomas, I have an announcement to make. Melissa and I have some exciting news to share with everyone." I froze, suddenly realizing what was about to happen. I looked at Philip, who squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Thomas, we're engaged." The room fell silent for a moment before people started offering hesitant congratulations. I stood there in shock, unable to believe that my brother would stoop so low as to announce his engagement at my engagement party. But then, something unexpected happened. Melissa stepped forward, her face red with embarrassment. "Melissa, I'm so sorry, but that's not true. Thomas, we talked about this. We're not engaged, and I can't believe you would lie about something like this, especially at your sister's party." The room went quiet again, all eyes on Thomas. He looked stunned, clearly not expecting Melissa to contradict him. "Thomas, Melissa, what are you talking about? We discussed this. I thought we were on the same page." Melissa, "No, we weren't. You mentioned proposing someday, but I told you I wasn't ready. I can't believe you would do this." Thomas's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. He tried to salvage the situation, but Melissa was having none of it. She apologized to Philip and me profusely before leaving the party. Thomas stormed out after her, leaving everyone in a state of shock. The rest of the night was awkward, to say the least. Philip and I did our best to steer the conversation back to happier topics, but the incident with Thomas had cast a shadow over the evening. By the time the last guest left, I was emotionally exhausted. I'm still processing everything that happened. I can't believe Thomas would try to ruin our engagement party like that. Part of me wants to cut him out of my life entirely, but another part of me feels guilty for even considering it. He's still my brother, after all. Philip has been incredibly supportive through all of this, reminding me that Thomas's behavior is a reflection of his own issues, not a reflection on me or our relationship. I'm so grateful to have him by my side. I don't know what's going to happen with Thomas or how this will affect our family dynamics going forward. For now, I'm trying to focus on the positives, my wonderful fiance, and the exciting future we have ahead of us. But I can't help feeling hurt and angry about what Thomas did. Am I overreacting? How should I handle this situation going forward? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since the engagement party fiasco, and things have only gotten more complicated. I thought I'd update you all on what's been happening. The day after the party, I received a flood of messages from Thomas. At first, they were angry, blaming me for Melissa leaving him and accusing me of turning everyone against him. As the day went on, his tone changed to apologetic, begging me to forgive him and help him win Melissa back. I didn't respond to any of them, needing time to process everything. A few days later, our parents called a family meeting. They said they wanted to address what happened at the party and find a way to move forward as a family. Philip offered to come with me for support, but I decided this was something I needed to handle on my own. When I arrived at my parents' house, I was immediately transported back to my childhood. The walls were still lined with Thomas's trophies and awards, while my own achievements were relegated to a small corner of the living room. It was a stark reminder of the dynamics that had shaped our family for so long. Thomas was already there when I arrived. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothes, a far cry from his usually impeccable appearance. Our parents sat us down in the living room, the tension palpable. To my surprise, my mom spoke first, addressing Thomas directly. "Mom, Thomas, what you did at your sister's engagement party was unacceptable. We raised you better than that." Thomas tried to interrupt, but our dad held up his hand. "Dad, let your mother finish. We've always been proud of your accomplishments, Thomas, but that doesn't give you the right to treat your sister or anyone else with disrespect." I sat there in shock, never having heard my parents criticize Thomas like this before. It was as if a lifetime of favoritism was finally being acknowledged. "Thomas, I know I messed up. I felt like I was losing control. Everyone was so focused on Philip and his relationship with Sis, and I guess I got jealous." "Mom, jealous? Thomas, you have everything you could want. A successful career, financial stability. Me, except a stable relationship." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Thomas's face fell, and I immediately regretted saying it. But it was true. For all his outward success, Thomas had never managed to maintain a long-term relationship. "Thomas, you're right. I don't have that. And seeing you so happy with Philip, it made me realize what I was missing. I thought if I could show everyone that I was just as committed as you, maybe Melissa would see how serious I was about our relationship." "Dad, so you lied?" "Thomas, that's not how you build a committed relationship." We talked for hours, really opening up about our feelings and the dynamics in our family. It was uncomfortable and emotional, but also cathartic. Thomas admitted that he had always felt pressure to be perfect, to live up to our parents' expectations. He talked about the stress of his high-powered job and how he felt trapped by the image he had created for himself. I shared how I had felt overlooked and undervalued for years, how my choices in career and life had always seemed to disappoint our parents. I talked about the pain of constantly being compared to Thomas and found wanting. Our parents listened, really listened, for what felt like the first time. They apologized for making us feel like we had to compete with each other and promised to work on being more supportive of both of us equally. Mom even admitted that she had always admired my creativity, but hadn't known how to express it. As for Thomas and me, we're not okay yet, but we're talking. He's agreed to give me space while I process everything, but he's also asked for a chance to make amends. I'm not sure what that looks like yet, but I'm open to the idea. The most surprising development, though, came a few days after the family meeting. Melissa reached out to me, asking if we could meet for coffee. Curious about what she had to say, I agreed. We met at a small cafe near my office. Melissa looked nervous as she stirred her latte, avoiding eye contact. "Melissa, I wanted to apologize again for what happened at the party. I never meant for things to get so out of hand." "Me, it's not your fault, Melissa. Thomas was the one who lied." "Melissa, I know, but I feel like I should have seen it coming. Thomas's behavior has been erratic lately." She went on to explain that Thomas had been becoming increasingly controlling and obsessed with status. He'd criticize her clothing choices, insist on only dining at the most expensive restaurants, and constantly compare their relationship to others. Melissa. When he suggested lying about our engagement, I realized how far he'd gone. I'm sorry it happened at your party, but in a way, I'm glad it did. It was the wake-up call I needed. She asked me about Thomas's behavior growing up and our family dynamics. As I shared some stories, I could see the realization dawning on her face. Melissa, I think Thomas needs help. Professional help. His need for validation and his competitive nature with you. It's not healthy. Sorry, I agreed with her, but admitted I didn't know how to broach the subject with Thomas. Melissa offered to talk to him, to suggest that they both see a counselor if they want to have any chance of salvaging their relationship. I left that coffee meeting with mixed emotions. On one hand, I felt validated hearing that Melissa had seen the same issues with Thomas that I had. On the other hand, I felt sad for my brother, realizing how much he's been struggling beneath his seemingly perfect exterior. Now, I'm left wondering how to move forward. Should I try to help Thomas, knowing that he might reject any suggestion of getting help? Or should I focus on my own life and let him figure things out on his own? And how do I balance all of this with planning my wedding and continuing my work with at-risk youth? I'm grateful for the progress we've made as a family, but I know we have a long way to go. Any advice on how to navigate this situation would be much appreciated. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It's been incredibly helpful as I navigate this complicated situation with my family. First, the good news. Philip and I have set a date for our wedding. We're planning a small ceremony for next spring. We've decided to hold it in the community garden where he proposed, which feels fitting given how much that place means to us. Despite everything going on with my family, we're excited to move forward with our lives together. Now for the more complicated stuff. After much consideration, I decided to reach out to Thomas. I invited him to meet me at a neutral location, a park near our parents' house where we used to play as kids. To my surprise, he agreed without hesitation. When we met, Thomas looked different. Gone was the designer suit and perfectly styled hair. Instead, he was wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, his hair slightly messy. He seemed more subdued, less like the brash, overconfident brother I was used to. We sat on a bench near the old playground, both of us unsure how to start the conversation. Finally, I broke the silence. Thomas, I want to understand what's been going on with you. Why did you feel the need to lie at my engagement party? Thomas was quiet for a moment before responding. I've been doing a lot of thinking since that night. I realized I've been chasing the wrong things. All the money, the status. It hasn't made me happy. Seeing you with Philip, how content you are. I guess I wanted that for myself, but I went about it all wrong. We talked for hours, reminiscing about our childhood and how things had changed over the years. Thomas opened up about feeling trapped in his high-pressure job, about his fears of not living up to our parents' expectations. He admitted that he had pushed Melissa away with his obsession with appearances and his competitive nature. Me. Have you talked to Melissa since the party? Thomas. Yeah, we met up last week. She suggested we both see a therapist, individually and as a couple. I was resistant at first, but I'm starting to think she might be right. I was shocked. This wasn't the Thomas I was used to, admitting he might need help, being vulnerable. It was a side of him I hadn't seen since we were kids, before the pressure of being the golden child had taken its toll. Thomas. I owe you an apology, sis. Not just for the engagement party, but for years of treating you like competition instead of my sister. I'm sorry. His apology felt sincere, and for the first time in years, I felt a glimmer of hope for our relationship. We're not best friends overnight, but we're talking more openly now. Thomas has started seeing a therapist, and he and Melissa are working on their relationship. As for our parents, they're trying. They've been making an effort to show interest in my work and my relationship with Philip. Dad even offered to help with some of the wedding planning, which was unexpected but appreciated. Last week, he asked if he could visit the youth center where I work. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot to me. Mom called me the other day, her voice hesitant. Sweetie, I've been thinking about what you said, about feeling overlooked. I want you to know that we're proud of you. Your work, your relationship with Philip. You've built a beautiful life for yourself. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. We're all learning how to communicate better, how to appreciate each other for who we are rather than trying to fit into predetermined roles. There have been some bumps along the way. Last week, Thomas made a comment about Philip's salary that rubbed me the wrong way, but instead of letting it fester, I called him out on it. He apologized immediately, recognizing his old patterns. As for the wedding planning, it's bringing up some old family dynamics. Mom keeps pushing for a bigger, more lavish affair, while Philip and I want something simple and meaningful. It's been a test of our new communication skills, but we're working through it. I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. Thomas seems genuinely committed to changing. Our parents are making an effort, and Philip and I are stronger than ever. It's not perfect, but it's progress. I know we have a long road ahead of us as a family, but for the first time in years, I feel like we're all heading in the right direction. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this journey. I'll keep you updated on any major developments, especially as we get closer to the wedding. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this whole situation. So much has changed, and yet some things remain the same. The wedding plans are coming along nicely. Philip and I have stuck to our guns about having a small, intimate ceremony in the community garden. After some initial resistance, my parents have come around to the idea. Mom even admitted that she was pushing for a big wedding because she thought that's what I wanted, not because it's what she wanted for me. It was a small but significant moment of growth for our relationship. Thomas has been surprisingly helpful with the wedding preparations. He offered to use his connections to get us a good deal on catering, but he did it in a way that wasn't showy or over the top. When I thanked him, he said, "I just want you to have the day you and Philip want. It's not about me." Hearing him say that meant more than any expensive venue ever could. As for Thomas and Melissa, they're still together and working on their relationship. They've been going to couples therapy, and Thomas has continued with his individual sessions. Melissa told me that she's seen a real change in him. He's less focused on impressing others and more interested in genuine connections. They're taking things slow, rebuilding trust, but Melissa says she's cautiously optimistic about their future. Last month, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. It was the first time we'd all been together since the engagement party fiasco. I was nervous about how it would go, but it turned out to be a lovely evening. We talked, we laughed, and for once, it didn't feel like a competition. Thomas even asked Philip about his work, showing genuine interest in his teaching career and the debate team he coaches. Of course, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. There have been moments of tension, old habits creeping back in. Last week, Thomas made a comment about my choice of wedding dress being too simple. I saw the old Thomas for a moment, but then something interesting happened. He caught himself, took a deep breath, and apologized. "I messed up there, didn't I?" he said. "Old habits die hard, but I'm working on it. As for me, I'm learning too. I'm working on not immediately assuming the worst when it comes to Thomas or my parents. I'm trying to give them the chance to show that they've changed, rather than jumping to conclusions based on past behavior. Philip has been my rock through all of this. He's been patient, understanding, and supportive as I navigate these changing family dynamics. He's also been great at reminding me to set boundaries when needed and to celebrate the progress we've made as a family. One of the most significant changes I've noticed is in how our family communicates. We're all making an effort to listen more and judge less. When issues come up, we address them directly instead of letting resentment build. It's not always easy, but it's making a huge difference in our relationships. Last week, I had a heart-to-heart with my dad. He opened up about his own struggles with feeling like he had to project a certain image of success and how that affected how he raised us. It was a vulnerable moment that helped me understand him better. As for the future, I'm cautiously optimistic. Thomas and Melissa are talking about moving in together, but they're not rushing into anything. My parents are planning a trip to visit the art therapy program I run, showing a genuine interest in my work. And Philip and I are looking forward to starting our married life together, surrounded by a family that's learning to love and support each other in healthier ways. I know we'll still have challenges ahead. Years of ingrained behaviors don't change overnight, but I'm proud of how far we've come. We're not a perfect family, but we're a family that's committed to growing and improving. And then to those who followed this journey and offered advice along the way, thank you. Your support and perspectives have been invaluable. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that change is possible if you're willing to put in the work. It's not easy, and it's not always linear, but it's worth it. As I prepare to walk down the aisle in a few months, I'm filled with hope. Not just for my future with Philip, but for the future of my whole family. We're writing a new chapter together, and I can't wait to see where it leads.